Hi, I'm Don Moores, and welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. The Affordable Health Care Act is again in the news this week, as two different circuit courts have issued conflicting rulings on key provisions in the bill. Mariana Cordier, a local attorney, is here to discuss what this all means for health care in the future in the United States. The Gaithersburg Germantown Chamber of Commerce is actively involved in so many things with the business community to support networking in the area that it serves. And it's not just business, but in so many different areas it's serving the greater Gaithersburg and Germantown areas. Marilyn Balcombe, Executive Director of the Chamber, is here to tell us all about these programs. There are many programs also in this county where one can learn English. And there's always, unfortunately, a need for more people to want to be teachers, more programs to serve this community, of which there are long, long lines. Kathy Stevens, Executive Director of McHale, is here to tell us all about expanding services to provide more opportunities for people waiting to learn English in our community. Terrible story. Two adults who are autistic were discovered in a home where they were locked daily in the basement. Jalen Prince, the founder of Madison House, has some thoughts on what could have been done to avert a situation like this. Welcome back, Mariana.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
What's going on? I thought the Affordable Health Care Act, Obamacare, Congress passed it. There have been battles. I thought everything was done. It's moving ahead. Now we've got two circuit courts.
We got two U.S. District Appeal Courts that have contradicted each other.
Okay, Circuit Court of Appeals, just below the Supreme Court.
Right.
And what's the issue that they're...
Okay, so the basic fundamental issue is subsidies.
Okay.
If the law is vague, the Congress passed, and the
Whoa.
cases...
It's 700,000 pages long. How can it be vague?
Well, let me be more specific. Apparently, it's vague, according to the Richmond, the Fourth Circuit, as to who would get the subsidies, and it reads into it that it makes sense that everybody is entitled to the subsidy. And what are we talking about? What is the subsidy?
What is a subsidy, right?
Subsidy is a tax credit that monthly that reduces your health care premium.
Okay.
And who does it apply to? It applies to, obviously, the very poor, all the way reaching up into the middle class.
So that's the reason for the first word of the act, affordable.
Exactly. And it's not that everyone gets the same subsidy. It's just that
sliding scale.
The more income you have, the less subsidy you get. The less income you have, the more subsidy you get. And so basically what happens is, when you remember when we all were those who were enrolling and everything, you had the state-run marketplaces, they call them.
I'm from Maryland. Don't tell me about these state-run things. It was a disaster here.
That's another issue.
Yeah.
Don't muddy the waters. And then we have the federal marketplace. Those states that elected not to have it state-run and for it to be in the federal. Most of those states was because they were strongly lobbied by the Republican Party not to. So you can see that this is something that long-term in the works. And so now that what the lawsuit is that those states that have their people, the citizens, going through the federal exchange are not entitled to subsidies. So what would that mean for these 27 states that it would apply to? That instead of paying on average $82 a month premium, you would be paying $367.
Less affordable.
Less affordable, particularly because the income range that we're talking about is middle class and down.
Okay, so Virginia and then the District of Columbia, that Circuit Court of Appeals, what's the difference between the two?
Okay, so that was the U.S. District Court in Richmond said, Circuit Court said, you know what, we agree that the subsidy is meant to be applied to everyone. Now D.C. is saying, no, it is only meant to be provided the subsidies to those states, their citizens will get it, that opened an exchange, a state-run exchange. And so that creates a huge increase in premiums.
Sure.
It creates a huge problem for those individuals in those states, and through no fault of their own.
Yeah.
And so
So
this is
a
about
problem.
leadership and the Republican leadership taking this stance.
So for the average person who's just trying to make sure they have health insurance, is this a big effect for them now, or what should they do?
If you're living one of those states, not yet. The good news is that it's not going to be applied yet. They've given room for appeals, but if it were to take effect, your premium, you would no longer get that monthly tax credit, and so they basically gut affordable health care because then there's going to be the issue, I have to pay the $367. I can't pay it, or it's very difficult for me to pay it. And so I'm going to have to maybe apply to the government or somebody to say, please exempt me.
Sounds overwhelming
And
for
you
your
get out
average
of it.
person.
Yeah.
And not only that, but what the biggest studies show that most people who are selecting these premiums, that are selecting these policies, are the lowest cost policies.
Oh.
So it's not even a lot of health care.
in some of these states, they're the states that rejected the participation with the federal.
It's not,
Is that
they
right?
rejected running their own state program. They'd
Okay.
rather have their people sign up through the federal program.
So they don't have the state program, so it's going to be costing people more. It's just another
It's
obstacle
gonna,
out there.
you know, essentially, you know, when you have a marketplace and you have competition among the health insurance carriers, it drives down the premiums. You have all of that going on, and it's in that jurisdiction. But what you run into is that if you can't get those premiums and you can't get that assistance, the people are first obligated by law to participate, and two, they're going to be paying a lot more for health insurance than they can actually afford to pay.
We've got about 30 seconds left.
So
real
what
quick.
about Maryland? We went through the cost of developing our own, but it didn't work. So where does Maryland stand with
Great
it?
question.
That's a really great question. I believe Maryland joined the exchange that is of another state. I think it was Connecticut or somewhere in New England. So I'm not really sure where it falls, but I don't believe it falls into losing its subsidiaries. But subsidies. But I'm not.
Well, that's
don't
enough.
quote me on that one because I wasn't ready for that one.
Let's do some homework and come back with that answer next
I'll
time.
do the homework. Yeah.
Marianne, it's always great to have you on. Thank you
Thank
very much for illuminating us on
It's
this
my
topic.
pleasure.
Marilyn, welcome.
Hi.
Let's talk Gaithersburg, Germantown.
Lots going on in Gaithersburg, Germantown. Just to talk briefly about the Chamber, we are a private nonprofit organization. We're a member-based organization. So our primary responsibility is to our members. That's what they're there for, is to get benefit. And our view is to increase the value of their business. But I want to talk about, our bread and butter is the networking events.
Right.
We do so much more than that. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. Our legislative advocacy runs the gamut from very local issues, parking districts, signage, all the way up to the Maryland gas tax, land use planning. Those are some of the things that we do.
You know, you're in such a complex area, diverse area in terms of, you know, such diversity in terms of the inhabitants.
Yeah.
So much business opportunities and people getting in. Also the center of biotech and
Yeah.
research and that great flagship Montgomery College Germantown up there with all these other campuses. Hughes, I mean, you've got, you know, what a great place to be the head of the chamber of.
It's very exciting, and we consider Gaithersburg, Germantown area to be the jobs reserve, as we have the ag reserve in the county. We have considerable density, so we're just waiting for the companies to come our
Now,
way.
those companies can just call you, right?
They can call me
Or anybody
anytime.
what's that
I've
phone
got
number?
some space
call
for
me,
you.
right.
301-840-1400.
Are you working with increasing things with biotech? Because I know we had a lead at one time, and it seems like Montgomery County is slipping behind a bit in biotech.
Well, actually, just this morning, I was at the Department of Economic Development is doing a 10-year strategic plan for the first time. Well, they did one many, 15 years ago, but and the focus is what is our strength, what is our target, what should we be known for, what are our assets, and they're starting this process. And I mean, the room was the who's who of the business community this morning. So we are looking at that, and also with the White Flint, the White Oak plan
Right.
in the eastern
With the
part,
FDA,
we really are poised to be really the center of biotech, and we just need to get back to that.
What's happening too with business, because I understand there's a bit of an alarm in a way with all of the apartments and things that are going in, that Montgomery County is becoming a bedroom community rather than having a lot of new business coming in. What can we do to make business work better?
Well, I think that one of the things that when people talk about economic development, they always think about reeling in the big fish. And we can't look at economic development like that anymore. What we're looking at economic development right now is retention, retaining what we have, but really growing our own. So the vast majority of jobs in this area and in this nation are small business jobs. So we need to take care of our entrepreneurs. We need to focus on innovation, and we need to grow our jobs and grow our businesses. And I think that's what we're going to focus on.
Are there any tax incentives? Because I know we lose
There-
out to.
There are a lot of tax incentives, and not only from the state, but the county and the city of Gaithersburg has significant incentives. And Steve Silverman this morning, when he opened,
The head of the economic development.
head of
Department for
economic
Montgomery
development.
County.
His issue was there are no dumb ideas. Let's throw everything out and come up with some really innovative ideas and look at incentives, look at how we can retain and grow our businesses.
That makes so much sense. And McHale, the organization that I run, we are a nonprofit, but we are a nonprofit business.
Absolutely.
I just bought products from a chamber member, probably not one of your chamber members, but a county chamber member for some office things. Can you talk a little bit more about your chamber's view with working with other partners outside of your own chamber, nonprofit partners?
Well, we
whomever that might be?
part of our chamber and the other chambers in the county, there are quite a few, is we work together when it makes sense, and legislative issues is where it makes sense. For instance, one of our huge wins was the gas tax, the state gas tax. Every chamber in the county was strongly represented in Annapolis on that, as was the whole our elected officials. So that's an area where we work together. We also work together with our nonprofit organizations. We have a strong nonprofit representation in our chamber, and we, like you said, they are businesses. They hire people, they buy supplies, they need accountants, they need attorneys, and they are part of our fabric.
And I've made a couple decisions recently to hire and purchase things from county, whether they're chamber members or not, from county businesses.
Buy local.
Yep, exactly.
You know, I got to tell you, Bill Schlossenberg, who is one of the great leaders of your chamber, he'd be proud, Marilyn, listening to all this. Because I'd have to listen to Bill Schlossenberg talk about the chamber, your chamber, all the time. I came up and spoke one time at the chamber on.
Well, Bill
some
still is a member of our chamber through the universities at
amazing.
Shady Grove, and that's the other thing. We partner very closely with our academic.
How could I miss out on the University of Shady Grove?
Right.
When I was talking about Montgomery College. Marilyn, thank you so much. We'll be right back after these messages. And we're back. Kathy Stevens,
Hello.
Montgomery Coalition for Adult English Literacy, McHale.
McHale.
It's a mouthful. McHale's so much easier to say than the full name.
I know.
So you're coming. You guys keep doing more and more. I see you in the
do.
news. I see programs. The county is providing more
Right.
resources. You've really energized McHale like we've never seen before.
Thank you. I can't take all the credit for it. There is such a need in the county, and the county executive and the county council have really taken an opportunity to focus on the need over the past year or two, and really helping us expand our level of resources. And that in turn helps us expand the support we give to all of the programs. About 60 programs, Don, in the
Right.
county that are offering English classes to adults. And
Now you have the traditional ones who've done English literacy for adults who were left behind in high schools and all
Right.
that, to really a lot of specialized organizations that are directed at various, especially immigrant groups.
Well, and most of our learners are those who are learning English as a second or third language. So really most of the need in the county is for those folks. And
There's a website people can learn more.
absolutely, www.mcale.org, and we list all of our programs on there. all the funding they get. We have a very transparent and interactive website.
You know, just and open it up for folks. But I want to. Last week there was a former leader, who was a mayor of a town in Montgomery County, recently retired from that position. He came and he wanted to have lunch because he said, "I've got time, and I want to dedicate myself to new Americans."
Right.
And I thought, well, there's no better organization than McHale. I don't know whether he's got in contact
He
with
called
you.
us,
Yeah.
Don, so I owe you a big thank you for that.
But it's people like this, and every opportunity I have to tell people there's a long line.
There is.
There's not
right.
enough. There's not enough resources. There aren't enough resources when the stereotype that people they just want to learn to keep
Right.
speaking their language.
Right. Which
it's
is, of course,
crazy, isn't it?
that's a myth. We have so many people. In fact, that's the beauty of our model, the coalition model. We've been working with several programs who told us, you know, over the past year or so, we have more people come to registrations in Gaithersburg and Wheaton, but mostly Gaithersburg, and we can't serve them all. So with the county, some of the county's increased investment in us, we are able to support more now, a couple programs, Linkages to Learning and
Right.
the Literacy Council of Montgomery County. I have to thank them for their hard work. And they're already situated in Gaithersburg, but they are expanding because we know we have more need. And we want to see more people get to more classes and be able to continue in well-taught classes so that they can achieve their goals around learning English.
You know, it's interesting. We had a care provider that worked with our son with autism, and she was trying to learn English.
Sure.
But she knew Swahili and knew how to read and write in Swahili and was learning English. But some people would say, well, she's illiterate. And I say, no, she has one language mastered.
right.
She's going for a second. And how about the rest of us? Because sometimes Americans aren't as versed on other languages.
That's very
and then
true.
with the Latin American community, which I'm more familiar with, many of them are coming with, if we're lucky, second or third grade education.
That is an excellent
and
point.
They don't read in any language.
Yeah,
or
that's
write,
true.
And they only speak Spanish, and even
Right.
sometimes their Spanish is
Right.
not the
hard.
greatest. So
I-
for them,
I am so glad you brought that up because this is something we are very aware of and working on, again, through the power of a number of organizations being involved in the coalition. We were noticing and we were hearing from our programs that many of the learners were trying to go get workforce development support at some of our other county partners, and they just weren't being successful because so many of those workforce development programs, really the threshold is at least a 6th grade or 8th grade education level. Many people, I might add many women from other countries too, only have at best a 2nd or 3rd grade education. So the programs that McHale supports are supporting literacy across the levels. We may have GED classes, we may have workforce classes, but we also have a significant population who are at the beginning or beginning intermediate
it's a lot
level.
easier
Yeah.
to
Go ahead.
learn if you already
Minute.
have one language, but if you don't have any.
Right.
I'm sorry, what would you say was is your biggest challenge, and what is your biggest need right now?
That's a great question. I think our biggest challenge and our need is making sure that people know about the benefits of helping folks learn English so they can achieve their personal goals. But I think this data point will be interesting to some people in the room, particularly you, Marilyn. The State Chamber of Commerce data says that for every dollar invested in adult education, you get over a $3 return to the economy within 18 months. So from a business community point of view, I think businesses often look at nonprofits like ours and go, oh, what else do they want now? They want a sponsorship for an event. But I think the more we can see ourselves as partners, helping support folks who are employees
Okay,
and
Employers.
customers and employers, it's a really smart win-win for all of us.
that's the last word. Win-win. I love ending on a
Yeah.
win-win. Well, thanks, Kathy. Look forward to having you back, and
Thank
good
you.
luck as you expand Gaithersburg, your programs in Gaithersburg
Thank
and
you.
elsewhere. Win-win is not what we're talking about over here, is it, Jalen?
No, it isn't.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Tell us what happened with these two adults.
We've had a very difficult situation that has played out here in our county in Rockville, and is where our foundation offices happen to be, although we're a national organization. So we've had a focus on this. The information is still sketchy, but there were two 22-year-old autistic individuals that were confined to the basement of a home.
Now, 22 is an important year because
is.
you can still be going school education benefits, county benefits, continue till you're 21, right?
Yes, and it's kind of interesting with this age, whether it is totally relevant in this story, it is relevant in many other stories too, because as soon as one completes high school, very often there is something called the cliff. because services are often very difficult to find for families and for individuals that are on the spectrum, and Montgomery County is no exception.
And you can learn more about the autism spectrum. You can learn much more about Madison House through your website. So
Yes.
what's that website?
MadisonHouse.org.
Okay.
And we've got information on that, and we're working primarily with those 21 and over, so this is right with our population. There's not a lot of organizations that are working with adults on the spectrum.
So these two adults locked away, and just this week, and we don't know all the facts, right?
We don't know all the facts. There are some things about autism. I can understand both sides. I don't want to see anyone in deplorable conditions whatsoever. I can understand, on the other hand, the desperation of many parents who are dealing with autism 24/7. And we have more and more autistic individuals that are living at home with their parents because there aren't the supports. They're home 24 hours a day. Mom is no longer working. She's no longer a taxpayer. She is a 24-hour caregiver. And if you have a child, an adult child, who may be up all night and is prone to wandering and will escape the house, what are the alternatives? Where is the help? And there are things that our society, our county, needs to address. And we've had some serious cutbacks in our county recently.
And that's
with,
really terrible
Oh, it
because
is.
the care and the needs are expensive. And so you really need to help these families because, you know, these children, although they're adults,
Right.
they are citizens of this county just like anybody else.
Yes.
And they have the right to live a healthy life in habitable conditions and,
Yes.
and cared for and protected.
You're so right. And there's such a wide array of individuals on the spectrum. There are people that are in Silicon Valley that are doing incredible things that we benefit from every day. And then there are those that need a lot more supervision. And those individuals, in fact, even some in the middle, are being overlooked. There aren't the opportunities, there aren't the employment opportunities for appropriate engagement where there are skill levels that are adequate.
How do you recruit individuals to assist families in these times? I mean, this is a challenging job. You've got
It
to
is
be able
huge.
to pay them a lot of money, I
It
would
is
think.
huge. There are some fundings that come into families or that families can qualify for. They have been cut. Our county is not being really glorious right now with the amount of funds that are going out to help with resource coordination.
I think also the issue of the cliff is so not only are families not getting the resources through MCPS or the school system, but there's also not an agency watching out for those children. So in this situation, it was a horrendous situation, and there was nobody in those young adults' lives to oversee that, and
No
so
advocates, really,
no
I guess.
advocates.
And there have
And
been some
it was
cutbacks.
inadvertent. They found them on a
Yes.
search warrant for a completely separate issue.
And
So
there are tragedies being played out in houses across our county. They may not be as graphic as this, but every bit as painful, perhaps to elderly parents, perhaps to the individuals on the spectrum.
Sounds to me like it's ripe for a lawsuit. Do you know any lawyers on this panel?
We would love to have a chance.
Who's got-
And I would hope that it wouldn't have to get to that point. I would hope that our county, our community, and our elected officials will hear the cry, because there is a tsunami of individuals coming forward. And these are members of families that have been tax-paying families
and
for
I
their
think
lifetime.
I think the
but
community
now
needs
they
to
need
be
help.
educated. They don't need to fear these young adults
Right.
that are handicapped or that have autism.
right.
Or I have a girl that works in my office and she's handicapped and she helps us out. She comes once a week and we love having her. She brings a smile to the office, the cheer. But you know, when she comes to the office, some of the other lawyers of another firm were kind of like, "Who's that?"
Right.
What you know? And it's not a client. It's
So are there
someone
things we should know
5
about
seconds.
with
That's it.
respect to this to this issue that we should keep an eye on?
You get 3 words.
Well,
That's it.
Keep your eyes open, be understanding, and help the families that you know and give them some love and support.
That's the last word. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Shailene. Thank you for coming back. Thank all of you for joining me today. And thank all of you in the viewing audience for this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Don Moores. We invite you to come back again next week at this very same time.